Take 3 Gen Xers, give them a topic about music, movies, pop culture, or whatever, and how it relates to them growing up in the 70s and 80s as part of Generation X. Add one person from another generation to see if there's any common ground, and you've got Solve for Gen X, starting now. Is Nate, are you upset with me because I couldn't figure out how to tell?
I'm pouting.
He's a brooder.
I know, he really is a brooder. It's okay.
Today's episode is entitled Come and Get It, Dinner Time. And from Norman Rockwell to Norman Lear, the dinner table has been the iconic symbol of the American family for many, many years. We've seen it in movies, television, we've read about it in books, art. It's where theoretically the business of the family happens, the joy of the family happens, the sadness of the family happens. Is that just fiction or is that based in fact? Well, we're going to find out from the Gen X perspective and from a very young millennial perspective. So like bottom end of millennial. We're going to find out that and more on today's Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X.
It was the age of parachute pants,
Skinny ties, neon headbands.
we rode our bikes, clothes, helmet free.
A nicotine from a vending machine.
Decades, pastimes, memories, and master song. Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X.
Well, I am Ashley Ward, Gen X 1972.
I'm Nate Starkey, Gen X 1971.
And I'm Matt Vogel, Gen X 1970.
I grew up a picky eater. And I would say now, probably clinically, it was not just like defiance I think there was some psychological aspect to it. There's a condition called ARFID, which you can look up, which is like avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. I think it is a version maybe of that is what I had as a kid. Anyway, because of that, my mother would make a meal that might have green beans. Like often the meal would have some vegetable or fruit involvement. And I hated green beans, but I would have to eat 4 green beans. And so, you may have heard of people having to sit at the table until they finish their food and they sit there for hours, and that's sort of the traditional thing. No. That's not what my mom did. Everyone had to stay at the table until I ate my 4 green beans.
Wow.
So it was, not only was it, and I'm still and was then a very slow eater. So I was always going to be the last one to finish no matter what. But I would leave the green beans for pretty much the end, and it would be this like fraught, painful, horrible thing, and then all eyes on me with like just immense pressure and anxiety.
But you kind of enjoyed that attention.
No.
A small part of you. A very small part of you.
0 part of
There wasn't a part that was like going like, well, if she's going to make everybody sit here and me sit here and I'm going to have to eat, then I'm going to make them just sit here and watch me and
well,
wait.
Here's why I'm curious about it, and I feel like there must be some small part of you because you saved them for last.
Because I didn't want to eat them. I mean, I would try
I know, but you knew you were going to have to, so why not? The best they're going to be is right away. Just the longer you wait, the worse they're going to taste, right?
Mix them in with the other food and just shove them in.
That's an adult perspective. That is not a child perspective. And that is not a picky eater child perspective either. Like, I was also a kid who, like, none of my food could touch. Like, I needed it very separated. So I wasn't eating.
I'm still like that.
I'm kind of like that still too.
How do y'all deal with, like, Mexican food?
What do you mean?
That's an exception. Exception to
like,
the. It's
everything's
just
on
stuff
top of
piled
each other
on top.
Right?
Yeah.
Like a burrito, by definition, burrito is everything mixed together.
I'm okay with it there.
By like, if
the burrito is one unit.
But if you're having, exactly. If you're having fried chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans and whatever and cornbread, that's not by definition all mashed together.
Although it is pretty good that way. That is pretty good. That sounds very good. It sounds
so I don't think you are like this,
Maybe
Matt.
I'm not, but
You're
I was.
Just tried to relate to me, which I appreciate.
Like the fried chicken bowl.
Instead of Nate making it that I like was enjoying this power, it was not about that. Like I was like pretty much every dinner I was in tears. The thought of it is so stressful to me. Like thinking about it is genuinely so stressful. I hated it so much. I hated eating. I remember like reading about like, oh, like in the future, all of our food will just be a pill and you'll just take it. And I was like, God, that would be so great.
You were
just to take
longing
a
for that
pill.
day.
I was longing for it. And I mean, the future kind of is now because you can get greens that are like all ground up and you just put them in like water or a smoothie or something.
How does that sound to you, Ashley?
Sounds awful. Well, but now I eat more things,
Yeah.
Like I
Yes.
have a broader palate, comparatively by a lot, but
Now
I'm still
she loves green beans.
I do love green beans.
Is that
Well, I'm
what's the
also,
reason
like-
for that? Like, is that
Well,
because
part of it is
just
preparation.
Yeah.
yes?
Well, but
Yeah.
this is what makes me wonder about the way you had to eat 4 green beans or whatever. But like the way they make it in the South is like boiled, like with bacon or ham hock or something.
They're cooked
So like
within
to
a-
me, like 4 green beans would be very small items of food.
Yeah, they were. It wasn't a lot. It'd be like 4 butter beans, 4 green beans, 1 piece of broccoli, which we didn't have that often. But so setting the trauma part aside
Okay.
of dinner time for me, my mom did have some sort of go-tos, pork chops, like oven-baked pork chops, thin sliced, with like, you could buy this Mahatma saffron, yellow rice that she always called saffron rice because it was like, sort of tasted, it wasn't really saffron because saffron's the most expensive thing on earth, I guess. I think pound for pound, it's like
Spice.
the spice is the most expensive, but I think it's like more expensive than gold when in terms of weight. It's really expensive. Because it's like the way you harvest it is
Well, it's
crazy.
like
It's basically
the-
like the little the piston of like a certain type of flour, and you have to like it's like very hard.
Sounds like it's
And
not
then-
worth the trouble.
I love saffron.
Oh, well, then,
Don't
So-
dare speak poorly of saffron.
So oven baked pork chops, this yellow rice. She would do what are they called? Not Stouffer's escalloped apples, which was like you would get like this little thing, and it was basically
it's
like
like a
apples and
dessert.
cinnamon, and it would go on your thing. So
Oh,
that
you'd
was
have that with the pork chops?
yeah. So that would be sort of, and it was hot. It was good. Those were really good. And that it would be sort of a standard meal. Sometimes we would have meatloaf, and my mom was really nice, and she would make the meatloaf and make one end of it, one like portion, didn't have ketchup on it because I hate ketchup to this day, and didn't have onions in it because I don't like onions. And so that was very nice. She
so it was
very
really just meat.
accommodating.
It was just the meat.
Yeah. I mean, which
Just the
meatloaf
loaf.
predominantly is
It is,
just meat.
yeah, and meat
It's
and
not
bread, I
we
guess,
would
or
have
whatever.
a hamburger steak, which is a thing that may be exclusive to the South.
No,
It would,
I know what a hamburger steak is.
it would
What
be
is it?
like
I don't
you
know
would-
what it.
It's exclusive to poor people.
Yeah. So basically, it would just be a hamburger without a bun or anything, and then you would just eat
okay.
it. It's like
It was ground beef, and
Yeah.
it was ground beef,
Okay.
but yeah, they would always have that at like there are places in the South called cafeterias, like Morrison's, Piccadilly, or like a Meat and Three type place where you would order like at the cafeteria, you go through the line and you would get like the hamburger steak would be always the thing I would get. We would have country fried steak. Sometimes we'd have oven fried chicken if she was feeling adventurous. Because it was also, it's like, she worked all day. So when my parents were married, they both worked, come home, she would make dinner. When my parents got divorced, she worked. Sometimes she didn't, but most of the time she did. She would sometimes lose her job. And she would come home and make dinner. And then when she married my
Did she lose her job because she was spending too much time making y'all dinner?
No.
That would be ironic.
yeah, it would really.
There's a variety of different things that happen. But yeah, those were sort of like, I would say those are pretty big standards. We definitely would sometimes have fish sticks or like a basic,
You would like fish sticks.
as a kid, I did. I liked fish sticks or hot dogs or
because
some
they're
kid
breaded or whatever they are,
Yeah,
right?
I know,
They're
but it's
like-
still, I never liked fish sticks ever. They're gross.
I liked them as a kid. I haven't had one obviously in years, but they didn't have like packaged chicken nuggets when we were kids. I don't even know like
Yeah,
I don't even exactly remember when McDonald's chicken nuggets came out, but it was definitely not like a thing that existed throughout my childhood. It was like it
Correct.
appeared at some point. I think my mom was between jobs and she was like kind of struggling financially, and she found out that like the company that made like the frozen pizzas and the frozen fiestadas, which was a Mexican octagonal Mexican style pizza. I don't know why Mexican style, but it was that we would have at school. She could buy from them, and it was so cheap. So she bought like a billion of these like little rectangular frozen pizzas and octagonal fiestadas. So we had those for a while. But I don't remember. It wasn't like, all right, everybody, let's talk about what's going on in the world. We definitely were not that family.
No.
And if we ever were, it was because of me. I would bring something up, but like my mother had no interest in talking about that. Like she would shut that down almost immediately.
I don't remember one conversation or the idea of a conversation at a meal at my house growing up at all.
Wait, no conversation, period?
I just can't.
Just
I mean, I'm
eating in
sure there
silence.
was. I'm sure there was, but we were a very fast eater. We were just like,
My mom is a crazy fast eater.
So
It was not, they were not monumental. We definitely talked, but it wasn't a monumental conversation.
I agree. Not at my house either. It was very just eat your food. How was your day? Good. Okay, great. Like there was nothing big going on at the dinner table, which is a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, we weren't really like, and I can definitely remember sort of like, probably around middle school age when it was really in my consciousness that was a thing that families did, was like that, me like trying to like start that, because I thought like, oh, that would be in just like absolute crash and burn, like just no interest at all. And like, when my stepdad came into our family, he was very young. So when he joined our family, I was 10, he was 26. So he's 16 years older than me. So he was like a 26-year-old with like 2 children right away. And I think he just was like, he had probably prior to this just been like, eating TV dinners or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
He moved straight from the dude house into your own.
Pretty much to the lady house,
Yep.
And so I don't, sometimes he would want to talk about stuff, but generally not at dinner. That would be later. He'd be like, all right, girls, we need to have a prayer meeting. And my sister and I would always be like, are we going to pray? Like, what? That would just be him like, we need to talk about like
Something.
You girls are getting too old to walk around in your underwear in the house.
A lot of what you're saying there, like having kind of like a routine set meals along the way. I remember that we had like tuna casserole, we called it. It was just tuna casserole. It was like a mac and cheese. I loved it. I really loved it.
Jack's family would have tuna. They called it tuna wiggle. That made
tuna
it more
wiggle.
exciting.
Sounds more fun, absolutely. But it had peas in it, and it was made with I think cream of mushroom soup and Kraft macaroni and cheese, but without the cheese part, I believe.
Like a canned starfish tuna, Starkiss?
Yes. I mean, everything when I was growing up was canned. All of the vegetables were canned. Everything was canned and preserved. So corn, green beans, never had a fresh vegetable in ever at my house. And I don't want to talk smack about my mom because, she was the default cook. That was her job, was to be the cook. And she did not, nobody really taught her how to cook. She just kind of had to do it on her own. So we definitely had like a pork chop kind of thing. We had that tuna noodle casserole. We did a lot of, this is a big thing in the 70s, like stuffed green peppers. Do you know that? It's like stuffed with.
We never had that, but yeah, like I know what it is.
Ground beef and something else, and I didn't like peppers
like
anyway. No, I don't know. How can you tell? What else we had? We had meatloaf, just covered in ketchup, and it was basically just like meat and bread. There was nothing really else in it. There was nothing really to it. What else was there? Sloppy Joes. We had a lot of Sloppy Joes.
Oh, we had
a lot
Sloppy
of
Joes.
Yeah, we also had Hamburger Helper.
Oh, yeah.
We had a lot of Hamburger Helper, a lot of like, I think my mom called it Sketty Mac. I think maybe it was just like elbow macaroni with ground beef and ragu or whatever it was. And my brother also, he reminded me because I'd asked him about this. He was the one that would have to sit at the table for hours because he would not eat vegetables. He just would not. He would not sit for vegetable. He would not eat vegetables, so he'd have to sit there forever.
And you guys had the good canned stuff. He still wouldn't eat it.
Yeah,
We would
wouldn't eat
sometimes
it.
have fresh
Wouldn't eat it.
vegetables because of my grandparents had like gardens, vegetable gardens, and also there was always like a veggie man that had like a truck parked on the side of the road, like in our town. And you just go buy fresh vegetables, but that was only in this like in season, you know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be like, it's a lot of cans.
Yeah, a lot of cans. I can picture us at that kitchen table, just like a small round,
Yep.
maybe not real wood, but it was like a wooden table with 4 chairs, and we were all around it. And my mom would sometimes make grilled cheese or something in the bottom, in the broiler, in the very bottom
Yeah.
of the stove. Sometimes my dad might do barbecue stuff, and if he did, it was like hamburgers, but they were always like really small, and they always were really, really overcooked. Like the 70s was a time when
The outside
everything
was just
charred. I had an aunt, and she wanted and if you had meat, it had to be well done. It had to be like charcoal, like
That's
a
how
little
my
brick of-
family is.
Oh, it was so gross.
I just remembered a crazy thing we would have, because I was like, man, we never had like salad with a meal. That wasn't like a thing that we really did almost ever. We
think
would
so
have
either.
a salad, but the salad would be a lettuce leaf, a canned half of a pear with mayonnaise in the middle and shredded cheddar cheese on top.
Whoa.
Sans mayonnaise for me, because I was not a mayonnaise person. That would be your salad.
Pear and mayonnaise. I guess that was kind of like the dressing.
So it was like a canned. You can get those half pears in a can.
Yeah.
A half
is-
pear on a lettuce
No.
leaf with
Who's
mayonnaise.
Who's responsible for this atrocity?
My mama would make it, but I think it was a big '70s thing. Like I think it was in magazines. Like try this salad.
Yeah. Another
That's
thing.
not a salad.
it's not-
Fangoria magazine.
Another thing that was big in the 70s was like that. You said, kind of reminded me of it with that half pear that was in a can, was the fruit cocktail.
Yes,
That was in a
we
can.
have that too. Yes,
So delicious, and all that syrupy
Syrup.
I ate
goodness.
so much fruit cocktail. I
One
loved it.
cherry in there, and just like a
Yeah.
bunch of chopped up,
chopped up pears
soaked
and
fruit bits.
so good.
We always would eat in the formal dining room at 7:30, and we had to dress for dinner.
You're
and it was
lying. You're
everyone's turn
lying.
to
Is
choose
this
a
real?
topic of discussion
He's lying.
that we would have to prepare for.
He's lying.
Really?
Why don't you let me go for a little while at least?
Yeah, that was-
'Cause
she knew it
was
right
It
off.
was so
She
bad.
knew right off.
It was so bad.
The formal dining room.
I was just trying to like do it.
Wouldn't that be weird though? Like, do you know anybody that had that kind of existence where they were like, "We will eat
I
at
didn't grow up
7:30"?
around rich people. But
No, me either.
That sounds like a rich person thing. Ashley's one of her regular meals. I've tried to recreate, but with my own spin. I'm sure it's not as good as what you
No, it
remember
is.
from your mom.
Well, the only thing you don't do is she always put Lowry's seasoning salt on the pork chop, which was really good.
But I grill it, and then I do like fresh apple mixed with like brown sugar and spices on the grill, like in a tinfoil pouch. So, and I do the exact same rice.
He does the exact same
Oh,
brand
really?
and everything.
But I
right,
do,
yeah.
Oh,
I do
wow.
like a crispy rice. So I
That's
do
a recent invention,
recent.
innovation, I should say.
or as Bobby Flay would call it, a crusty rice.
Ugh. We just were
Crusty.
watching him, and he was talking about crusty rice. I was like, that sounds
That is
like something you find in
kinda-
your underwear that you don't want to talk about.
Don't walk around the house in your crusty rice underwear.
Honey, will you come here? I think I've got the crusty rice again. The crusty rice is back.
I feel ill. Like, even joking about it, it's making
It's
me
kinda-
ill. He's just like, I made my crusty rice. Do people want to eat this? This crusty rice? Like, ugh.
For most of my schooling years, I lived with my dad and my stepmom, like really 5th grade, 4th grade on. And my parents were both teachers. So we'd all be home at like 3:30 done with our days. You know what I mean? Except for us kids had homework and stuff and they had to grade papers or whatever. But we would have like the after school snack, which is where most of the organized sort of discussion would take place. That's where it's like, how was your day? And that sort of stuff. And it would always be a pretty healthy after school snack.
An example.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Like carrots. Like
And
carrots.
no dip.
Yeah, and maybe like some kind of like
Okay.
dip. I don't remember. Because my parents were teachers, we would all be there together, and we'd sit down at the kitchen table, and
We had to scavenge for snacks.
and they would
Yeah,
ask us about
that's
our
true.
days, and like find out what homework we had that night and that sort of stuff.
This is all pre-dinner.
Yeah. It's like 3:30.
Okay, sure.
No, this is you're skeptical. You seem skeptical.
No, I'm just I think it's lovely that you sat
Did
around.
you never
with
have
your
an
parents.
after-school snack? Weren't you
Oh,
just
I
hungry
did,
after
yeah,
school?
but it was like something that I would just like sit and watch TV. Like my dad was at work and my mom was probably cleaning or doing housework of some sort. Where
Well, my parents went through various health phases where they were very concerned about what we were eating. So they would manage those snacks so that just to make sure we were eating something kind of healthy. I think my stepmother was a little bit more into cooking than maybe your folks were.
Yeah.
And maybe my dad as well. They would get, we would do Mexican salad. You reminded me of that, which is just like corn chips with like lettuce and sour cream and salsa and
is there ground beef or anything on it?
ground beef. Yeah,
okay.
like mixed
Yeah, we
together,
did
just like a
something like
Frito
that.
salad, right?
Yeah.
We have tacos
yeah.
sometimes.
We do something like that, sure.
Sometimes but not that. Oh, it's only been a couple of years ago since my mother stopped calling tortilla chips chips, which was
Not chips.
the first time that I ever saw tortilla chips, like in the grocery store that we bought them. It was like Old El Paso. It was in a box, and they were called chips. It was like NAC, like nachos and chips in a portmanteau. So chips. And Mama for years would just be like, "We'll get some of those chips," and she meant like Tostitos or whatever. Because I was like, I don't even think they make them anymore. This
Yeah.
like box of
Yeah, I
like
never
kind
heard
of
of
not
those.
great tortilla chips. The we did not have a lot of access to non-white people food.
Well, we grew up in the Southwest, in Colorado, I think it's the Southwest, right? Or the Old West. So we, green chili, burritos, those were big in my house. Green chili is like a chili stew with green chilies, instead of red chilies, and like big old hunks of pork and stuff. And we'd have that some nights with cheese, or then we'd like put it over our burritos for the next night. I've carried these traditions into our home. So my my stepmother's mother, Ma, Kathy, got a lot of her recipes from her. Kathy, my stepmother. And so one of them was like an all-day spaghetti sauce kind of thing. We didn't call it Sunday gravy, but it was spaghetti sauce. But it would cook like for 4 or 5 hours.
And just to contrast, the spaghetti that we would have at my house would be noodles, like spaghetti noodles, tomato paste, and ground beef. The end.
Yeah.
That was spaghetti.
Similar.
And my mom would be
similar.
like, "This is spaghetti."
Yeah.
So I think maybe because there was like more of a, like Kathy's mother was like the homemaker from the, 50s, 60s kind of thing. That it was important to her to pass down the family recipes. So there was some of that culture going on with meals. And plus the fact that my parents were teachers, they had more time to spend on dinner because they were done working by the, in the afternoon instead of in the early evening or whatever.
It's also a thing in the South where a lot of times that is sort of phased out, but where breakfast was a big meal, lunch was a big meal, and lunch is called dinner, and then supper is a very light meal. So that was sort of the traditions that my parents both grew up with, and it sort of shifted as people grew out of agrarian society into like more 9-to-5 businessy society. So it's like you're not getting up and eating a huge breakfast at 7 a.m. and then having lunch at noon on the dot, a huge dinner at noon, and then at the end of the day having your sandwich and going to bed, basically.
I relate to the not being the picky eater. I relate to that, what Ashley was talking about. I relate to sitting at the table with my food until I finished. But that was I was with my mom.
Did you just want attention? Is that why you did it?
No, I generally didn't like it. And I didn't have anxiety about it. I would usually cheat the system. And if I had to eat this many of my peas, I'd hide them in my meatloaf and squish it down so it looked like I ate more meatloaf than I did. Or I'd sneak them in my napkin or something like that. There weren't a lot of times when I was sitting at the table a long time because I would find ways to work the system.
I was too honest.
Yeah.
No, I was not.
And my mom would check.
You're going to get out of it.
My dad and Kathy's house, legit, they made good food. I was never not wanting to eat their food.
Well, I feel like I was lucky because my mother would not cook anything that she didn't like or that she was like, no child would want this. Like, for example,
I think my mom was
my
that
mother
way,
never
too.
made liver and onions,
Right.
or
Yeah.
she never made like fried chicken gizzards or fried chicken livers because she was like, I mean, I think she likes fried chicken livers, but she was like, children don't like that.
Yeah.
And so that was really nice. She didn't make Brussels sprouts because she thought they were gross. This is before we knew how to cook Brussels sprouts.
So dinner, like I said, we would do like the conversations about things at after school snacks. So dinner was more of joking around. Like my brother and I would, when we were kids, we'd be fighting at the table lots and teasing my stepmother, and we're all making fun of each other, and so that dinner was fun. It was still bonding, but it was in our own like sarcastic way of bonding, and like rambunctious boys bonding. And then when my sister came along, and she would be at the table, she was picky, but she like wouldn't drink her milk. So, but she was also very competitive. So I would get her to drink her milk by challenging her to a race, like stuff like that. That was kind of like, there's definitely like family dynamics at play at the table.
It seemed like in that situation, you were trying to help out your parents to get your sister to eat, to drink her milk.
Yeah.
And have fun.
And I love milk, so.
I never had to drink milk either because my mother didn't like it.
Nice, good, cold glass of milk. Delicious.
Ugh.
We had a milkman. Did you have a milkman? So it was good milk.
Oh, no. We did not have a milkman.
No.
Yeah.
That's nice.
There were to me, and now I look back on it, it's so funny to me, but like TV dinners when we were kids were like relatively new. They weren't like crazy new, but it was like a newer thing. So it was to have a TV dinner night was really exciting.
Yeah.
There were exciting
that's true.
nights.
My mom used to make this thing called hobo dinners. Not very politically correct.
Probably not,
But
no.
basically it would be a piece of aluminum foil. You'd put a hamburger steak in there, some chopped up potatoes, carrots, onions if you wanted. Then you'd sort of twist up the tinfoil into a little pouch and you'd put them in the oven. I think it's like a camping kind of meal. And then and we hobo dinners was like that was the light of my life.
I've done those when we went camping, remember?
Yeah, I loved a hobo dinner. That was my fave.
Some exciting ones were like, and it's like when you're a kid, the stuff that necessarily isn't that great is exciting when you're a kid. Like, for example, when my dad would like make steakum sandwiches with cheese.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about those, but you're right. Yes.
That was exciting because
That was
those are so
exciting.
good.
Yeah.
Or just my dad doing like he had a little like grill that stood on the counter, kitchen counter that was like just like a red tube that got hot with the grill on top of it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Like a heating tube that would get hot, and he would grill steaks. It had like a little oil pan at the bottom. He would grill steaks on that. I mean, burgers on that. And he would just like do frozen burgers that were like pre-made out of the freezer and make. That was exciting. I remember, and also in high school, my parents taught at my high school, and I have a very specific. You have these specific memories that weren't like momentous occasions, but you just remember them because they're like little moments in your life where it gave you perspective on things. I remember walking out of school with my parents as a ninth grader, freshman, and asking them what we were having for dinner. And they're like, oh, we're just going to get McDonald's. And me being, yeah!
Yeah.
And there being like another kid walking by, witnessing this exchange like a senior, and just looking at me and being like, freshman.
It was exciting to do
it
that.
It just struck me out like, well, oh, not everyone's excited about McDonald's? That's weird. Any exciting dinner meals you guys want to share that were like, oh, I get excited for that?
Oh gosh, I agree about the McDonald's or Wendy's or where Long John Silver's. Like sometimes we would go there. Like to have an excursion for dinner was rare but really cool. Yeah,
we did not go out a lot.
We didn't go out.
Neither
But
did
when
I.
we
Neither
did
did we.
like if my grandparents came into town, we would almost always go to Red Lobster with them, and that was just like. Yes, the best
cool.
thing that it ever so that would be in Atlanta. We would go with them to Red Lobster. So it was just exciting to go to Atlanta. And you go to Red Lobster. I famously once stuffed my pockets full of hush puppies when we were getting ready to leave because I liked the hush puppies when I was a small child. And
I'm not leaving.
I'm like, I'm gonna get these hush puppies.
We would go to the Lakewood Bar and Grill. Would be like our only it was just like the sort of dive bar that had a grill, and but they had good food for cheap, And that was about the best we did. But we would go regularly enough, like maybe once a week or something. Not like on the same day or anything, but enough that we were raised to know what restaurant manners were.
Okay, that's good. That's helpful.
Which a lot of kids I notice don't know what that is.
Even today.
Yeah, I mean,
no,
I just think it was the way we acted at home. Like we didn't go out to eat that often, but I think we knew how you acted at the dinner table.
Well, no, we didn't. We acted.
Y'all were wild.
We were wild boys at the dinner table.
I mean,
at home.
we would joke and be silly and stuff.
We knew that at restaurants we don't act that way.
Right.
What about like dinner desserts? We had our big dessert was pudding in a cloud.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was a big Jell-O thing.
Yeah.
Promoted by Bill Cosby.
Yes.
But yeah, I remember my dad made that for us once when Grease was going to be on TV, and we were like eating. I was just like, it doesn't get better than this, baby.
Oh, it doesn't.
We didn't have a lot of desserts.
She'd get a wild hair. She used to love to.
That's what you would have for dessert?
No.
Gross.
She would get a wild hair.
A rabbit.
no.
A rabbit? You had a rabbit?
A
wild rabbit.
Got us some dessert.
Just
get that shovel. We got to kill this thing.
She called it Mexican candy, but it was basically like pralines, like you get in New Orleans. Like the oh god, I loved those. They were so good. What else would we have for dessert? Pudding in a cloud, man. That is a classic. Yeah. We would have Jell-O. We did have a lot of Jell-O, actually.
Nate, you just had probably carrots or something.
We didn't have regular desserts. I mean, I remember like my stepmother making chocolate chip cookies sometimes, but
that's good.
As growing up, like not as much.
Well, before my parents got divorced, I think
my mom would make really good chocolate chip cookies. I remember that.
we would do after dinner every night. My dad
Brownies.
would take me and my sister to the Magic Market, which was like a little corner store, and we were allowed to pick out a couple pieces of candy every night.
Wow!
And then we'd come home and watch Hogan's Heroes in syndication. And then we'd watch our nighttime TV, and then we'd go to bed.
So for Gen X!
I'm so excited to have my friend Harper-Rose Drummond with us. She's an amazing stand-up comedian, podcaster, improviser, musical improviser. She does all the things. A hilarious and beautiful soul. Harper, lovely to have you.
Yay!
Oh, thank you so much for having me, you guys.
You are the youngest of the millennials, right? I think you're like at the bottom end of the millennials.
Yeah.
Because you're like 30?
Okay, you know what? Yes, I'm 30. I'm 30. No,
I would have never asked your age. That is so rude.
You're about to be 32?
Guys, we're going to get into my weight next. No, I'm about to be 32. Yeah.
Well, so that's still pretty much I think like the youngest millennials are 29 or 30 maybe?
29, 30,
like
yeah.
Yeah. So you're in the young end of millennials. So yeah, we've been talking about like what dinner time for us was like growing up, and we like to compare and contrast. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what dinner time was like at your house growing up.
Okay, it was like, I would say it was like beautiful chaos, but we all, like, my family, like, growing up, like, we had, like, it was definitely a very tumultuous household, but the one time we would all have, like, a harmonious get-together was at the dinner table. And my family's very funny, so I honestly would look forward to going home to eat dinner when I was in school. And then if something crazy happened, I would, like, make a note. I feel like this was, like, my intro to stand-up, because I would, like, make notes in my binder about, like, crazy things that were happening at school. I'm like, how am I gonna strengthen this for the dinner time, story time? Like, I need to, like, make sure my stories are tight.
That's awesome.
And
so that was like your type 5. Your first type 5 was like
yeah, and everyone in my family would, because we would go around and share like our favorite, like our highs and lows of the day, but like there was pressure to be funny, and like, because if you weren't, the family would be like, you're losing us, and like,
wow.
I'm like, I'm in 5th grade. I'm like, okay.
And so it was organized. It was like a thing where, like, okay, we all are going to talk about our highs and lows. We know that's what's expected at dinner. Like,
yes.
Wow.
And it was not an option to not have dinner with the family. Like, you were having dinner come hell or high water. Even if you were sick, like, your ass is going to be at the damn table.
Wow. I have a question, Harper. You have siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother.
A younger brother. Okay.
So and is he also very funny?
it's like very annoying how much funnier he is than me. I'm the least funny member in my family, and I'm so grateful every day that no one else does stand up because I would be cooked. They're so much funnier than me.
Or maybe you could ride their tail.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe they need to kind of like get in.
I think it's ride their coattails.
Whatever.
But you know what? Whatever. I'm hopping around. Yeah.
You don't know if her family, if they don't have tails. You don't know.
I'm just glad I didn't grow up with this one at the dinner table. Because I would be so low self-esteem as opposed to Harper. I was the funniest person in my family.
You were?
And I would hold court at dinner. And I was telling these guys, like, dinner was like fun time. It was make fun of everyone and everything. And I was kind of the king of the comedy there. But if I had grown up with her in my family,
she would have outdone you.
No, I just would have never said anything.
Yeah,
I'd be too afraid.
I would have outdone you. But also,
you also would have had to sit at the table for hours and hours because Ashley would never eat her green beans.
Because I wouldn't eat my green beans. Everyone had to stay at the table.
So tell us about the actual eating part of dinner for your
like
family.
the food and that kind of thing.
Well, both my parents, they both love to cook. I feel like my mom's more of a baker. My dad's more of like a cook per se. But they took a lot of pride in their meals, and we also didn't have a lot of money. So they were very big on like not wasting food and also being appreciative of the energy that they took to do it. They're kind of like, you're welcome that we even did this for you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And my mom has, how you say, like the energy of a grizzly bear. So like not eating your meal just wasn't an option. Like if you like wanted to not, she'd be like, "Oh, really?" And you're like, "Oh, just kidding, nom nom nom." So,
did you like the food though? Was it an issue or not?
Okay, well, honey, the issue, the one issue that I would say arose is when God bless my parents, they were going through a tough time, and so we were just having the budget friendly meal of spaghetti over and over and over and over again. And I remember one time I was just like, "Damn, spaghetti again!" And then I got an earful, mouthful, whatever. I got laid into. Yes. Yeah.
Everybody's tail was getting rode that day. That is riding somebody's tail. That's when you ride somebody's tail and they piss you off. You are like, all right, I'm going to be on you about this.
Harper, was there anything that you wouldn't just like refuse to eat or just hated eating, but maybe didn't make a big deal about it because you didn't want to get in trouble, but you ate it?
God. Well, still to this day, I can't eat spaghetti anymore. Like, I really feel like you guys need to understand the trauma that was spaghetti night every single night.
Wow.
But
that's interesting.
That's like, that even just the word is kind of triggering, but it's okay. But I feel like asparagus.
Oh. And how would your family prepare the asparagus? Does it matter? Have you had it prepared different ways and you don't like it no matter what?
Yeah, I feel like I just don't like it no matter what. I will say my parents are great cooks. Like the food, like I've heard horror stories from my friends, and even like going over to their houses occasionally for dinner when I was allowed to go for dinner. Like I would just be like, "Oh, this is what y'all are doing over here." Like, okay, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Like, and it's also like I was like, "And you guys aren't funny," so I was like, "It's funny and bad food." Like, no.
So you would have dinner at your friend's house was not a great experience for you because it was disappointing because your family was far superior.
Yes. Yeah. And then I was like, wait, you guys aren't friends with your parents? I was like, I don't even think I'm friends with mine, but just at the dinner table, that's when we're buddies. Like, we're not having a laugh. What's going on?
Oh, that's fantastic.
That sounds so fun.
I love it. That sounds like my family, honestly.
I want to go to dinner at your house.
I know. I want to go, but not spaghetti. I'm sure it's good.
Because like I would go to my friends' houses for dinner. My friends, they'd have like powdered milk.
What?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. I had powdered milk
at the table was like powdered milk.
We had that also because my dad got involved in some like it was called
Ponzi scheme.
It could have been. It very well could have been. We had boxes of powdered milk, powdered orange juice. I think it was all powdered.
Oh, powdered orange juice. That makes more sense because like Tang. I was friends with a girl named Lois Masterka and her family. I would be over there sometimes. Her family was from New York and they were Polish, and they would sometimes make like boiled cabbage, and I'd be like, she had previously asked me to have dinner with them, and I'd be like, no, I have to go home.
You're like, no.
What's that smell? And she's like, oh, we're having cabbage. I was like, no, I'm out. I am very, very out.
Gotta go. Yeah.
But were you allowed to invite people over to your house for dinner, and were people just like, this is the greatest show in town?
Okay. So, With dinner, no. Like we had I grew up in, for the most part in North Carolina, and it was in like a double cul-de-sac. So it was like, there was a bunch of neighborhood kids and we had an open door policy. Everyone's running into everyone's, homes growing up. It was so fun. But the dinner, at dinner time my parents were so strict. Like, no, this is strictly just family. And like one time I remember, I think my friend Sarah was spending the night or something, and she's like, you need to wait upstairs or something. I don't know.
So after dinner?
Did they at least bring them a plate?
Yeah, I brought food up to her like a dog, and I was like,
like prison. Like basically, you brought her like a PB&J and a glass of water, and like, sorry, you gotta eat this in your cell.
Yeah, my friend Sarah was the only friend of mine that would she was my best friend, and like her family is like my second family, but like she was the only friend that would step up to my mom and be like, no, I'm not leaving. And my mom's like, well, fine, then get upstairs. And Sarah's like, and I will. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Oh my god.
So,
that's
your mom the grizzly.
I'm
guessing. Grizzly mom.
I'm guessing that that was like, how did that start with your family, that dinner time was such a kind of like a sacred time for your family? Do you know if that's your parents, that's how their lives were when they were growing up?
No, my parents, without spilling too much, my parents both had very insidious home lives growing up. And so when they got together, they were like, we want to make sure that our family is filled with love. And then they, but without having therapy, there was still like that, like rustle and tussle, but it was very loving, and they're very like passionate, funny people. And yeah, like I feel like they both like made a team effort as a couple to like, okay, when we bring kids in, like we're instilling this tradition.
So generationally speaking, I'm wondering if there's much difference. There must be some sort of difference between like the greatest generation and millennials as far as like how dinner time is treated.
It's very different. Like even
maybe
just from how we were in our family, like we didn't really talk. There was not really a lot of.
I feel like
there's a resurgence of dinner.
Harper's example to me feels like what, and we did joke and stuff at the table, but it just wasn't. It just wasn't like a thing in the way that like your eyes light up when you talk about dinner time at your house.
Well, I will say
and that
really
feels
look
like
forward
the sort
to.
of thing that I was always wishing that dinner was like, and it was not.
I will say this: my stepmother, I often sort of talks about how she would love to have dinner with just the immediate family again someday.
Meaning me not there,
right? Like on the surface. On the surface, it's like, oh, that means without the wives and the families and stuff like that. And it's nothing against the wives and the families. I think she really looks back at those times and that dynamic of just that immediate family with such fondness.
Yeah.
That it's sort of like feeling like, oh, I wish I could be young again almost.
I think my mom has expressed similar things. In fairness, Nate's family, I feel no like worries about Nate's family not liking me.
Everyone to a man loves Ashley much more than me.
Yeah, I do wonder like what
not just in my family, but in the world.
It does sound like you have that awareness that your mom or that they want to have that experience again because they looked at that time as a really nice, fond time. I don't know that my mom thinks that way.
Well, I think generationally speaking, that might be a difference. Like our generation was sort of like not as important for us.
Yeah.
Well,
so for you, Harper. Sorry. I was just going to say, do you ever get like a sense from your parents, like of thinking back to those fond times of having dinner together? Do you ever talk about those times having dinner? You do.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, also my parents got divorced last year, but they're still like really close. They're still like best friends. What's a boundary? We don't know. We don't know what that is in this family. That's okay though. But my family, we still do. We always reminisce on the dinners because I'm not kidding y'all. Like we were going off at these dinners. We were having so much fun, and they were like a very long event. Now, when dessert came out, that's when like the fights would kind of start to arise. But for dinner, we were one, and it was just like the best, most fun time. Like I just loved it. Like I didn't even want it to end. But
what a great person for you to invite to be on.
I know.
It's like the perfect person.
Well, it was so funny because when we were talking about it, she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this topic because like I loved dinner time. And I was like, I mean, Harper's a very enthusiastic person. She's very supportive and positive. And so I was like, okay. And now I'm like, oh, damn. Like,
no. I'm being serious. I really like.
It is, yeah.
Like, I'm like, my favorite topic I never talk about. Let's go.
Yeah. I sort of wonder if like our parents who are boomers, if they were doing the thing that like, okay, this is what you do. You get married, you have children, you sit down at dinner every night. And this was very perfunctory, as opposed to in Harper's case, her parents made this like really conscious, specific and clear decision to make dinner time be this bonding event.
I think it's because
intention is the difference.
I think it's because that it's the children are the future thing. It's because that like our parents really didn't care about the way we grew up as much. Your parents do.
Yeah, because their parents didn't really care about how they grew up. You know, I think it's gotten better. We've talked about over the generations that the parents have more investment in the lives and happiness of their children.
Became more important after our generation.
Well, I feel like each generation is getting more and more sensitive to other people's like emotions, and I feel like the farther back you go, it's more just like you just put your head down and you survived and you worked, and now it's more like, but how do you feel about that? And so,
right.
My mom was telling me at her dinner table, number one, neither of her parents ever said that they loved her. Like they just were just like, you just can feel it. And I'm like, well, it's ice cold, so we're not feeling much. But but then my mom was one of three, and so they would just sit there, and like only the parents were allowed to talk to each other. And if the kids were ever like, oh, I love that too, they're like, silence. And so
wow.
Well, it's so funny because Matt was talking earlier about how he would manage his kids by asking them, tell me about your feelings. And I was saying, like, if my parents ever asked me to tell me about their feelings, I would know they were making fun of me. And I would be angry. And I would tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
Because that is not a serious question.
As a 6-year-old.
Oh my God.
So
That's Harper, tell us where else we can see you, because you have a stand-up special. You also have at least 2 podcasts, I think. You have a couple podcasts.
I do a podcast called Tea Time with my now former roommate Gabby Lamb, where people just send in their haunted stories. But I don't know. Oh my God. Okay, I got shy. I mean, you can just find me on Instagram doing my annoying little thing, Harper-Rose.
And what's your remind me what your stand-up special is called?
Oh,
and do your type 5 from that.
Okay.
I'm joking.
Hey, everybody. No, okay. It's called Scootily Doo, and it's on my YouTube.
Scootily Doo. It's very funny. I saw it in person on one of the times that it was filmed, and it was.
I know. That meant so much to me that you came, Ashley. It was like so cute.
Oh, I wouldn't have missed it. It was so good. It was awesome.
Do we need to talk about our feelings right now?
Yes, you guys.
She just did. I think she did it.
And then eat a big bowl of spaghetti.
Yeah.
This has been so great to get your perspective on this, Harper. Thanks so much for
I think you're the best guest we've ever had. Am I wrong?
Oh my God.
No, I think you're right.
Thank you
Pretty
so much
good.
for having me.
That was great.
Yeah, that was so fun.
Such a perfect guest.
It really was. And like, I just was thinking that when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, I like her a lot. I think she's really funny. I was like, she's a fun energy for this. But I didn't know that she had, because she also has sort of, a lot of her stand-up is about like fraught relationships within her family. So I was like, I don't know which way this will go, but I think it'll be, and then when she told me she was so excited, I was like, oh, perfect.
Dinner time.
Let me ask you, Matt, with your family, do you make a big deal out of dinner?
Yeah, it's not a big deal, but we do like
as compared to your family, growing up.
Absolutely, yes, and that's largely due to Kelly. It doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm very whatever, we will do whatever. But
did Kelly make that decision because of that's how it was with her family, or because she wanted it to be that way?
She wanted it to be that way for our family. So she gets we both get very excited when we have all 7 of us here.
Yeah,
which is very, very rare nowadays. But
so maybe you can relate to when your kids grow up and have families, how you might miss it being just the 7 of you.
Absolutely. Should we pick a topic for next week?
Yeah, this will be Nate's, right?
Yeah, I will pull it out of our 1980s fanny pack. Solve for Gen X reacts 16 Candles.
So it's just about the movie 16 Candles?
Or
just about
I guess
being 16?
Well,
I like it either way.
I guess that means we all have to watch the movie.
Okay.
Oh, great. I love it.
Whatever. And then come in with our reactions in whatever that means to you.
Solve for Gen X is mixed and edited by Nate Starkey.
The theme song was written by Nate Starkey and Matt Vogel and performed by the Mighty Weeklings.
Our podcast art was created by Dave Hulteen at davehulteendesign.com.
You can find Solve for Gen X wherever you listen to podcasts.
And it's also available to watch on YouTube.
Just search Solve for Gen X.
If you're so inclined, please rate and review our show. It really helps our visibility.
Or whatever.
Whatever.
Solve for Gen X is a Welcome Matt and Married Nate and Ashley production.
If they